Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning I bid to the honorable adjudicators, teachers and students. Congratulations to all debaters on your astonishing achievement during the preliminary rounds. Now, we have come to the most awaited moment, the final debate round between MRSM Kuala Kubu Bharu and MRSM Muadzam Shah. Announcing the procession of the finalists of debate final round, MRSM Kuala Kubu Bharu and MRSM Muadzam Shah, Speaker of the House and honorable adjudicators into the hall. Without further ado, I would like to invite the Speaker of the House to proceed with the next session.
Assalamualaikum and good morning. I, Amnani Michelle, as the Speaker of the House and Khadija Sofia as the timekeeper, bid to the honorable adjudicators, teachers, debaters, and fellow audience. Before we begin our debate today, please set your smartphone or any devices to silent mode. And a gentle reminder for the audience, you are advised not to leave or enter the room during the debate speeches, and I urge everyone to be silent during the said speeches. Welcome to the final round of the Inter-MRSM Debate Championship 2024. The motion for today is, the House will ban political parties from campaigning on social media during election. On my right side, for the affirmative team for this debate is from MRSM Muadzam Shah, with Mr. Muhammad Danish Naufal as the Prime Minister, Mr. Alif Naufal as the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Amira Hanisa as the First Minister, and a reply speech will be delivered by Mr. Muhammad Danish Naufal. Then, on my left side, for the opposition team, we have from MRSM Kuala Kubu Bharu, with Ms. Awatif as the leader of opposition, Ms. Nilia Khairin as the deputy leader of opposition, Mr. Muhammad Harid Hakim as the first opposition, and the reply speech will be delivered by Ms. Nilia Khairin. Now, I would like to happily introduce the educators for this round. First, I would like to introduce the Chief Adjudicator, Ms. Mizan binti Mohammed, who is a lecturer in Jabatan Pengajian Undang-Undang at Pusat Asasi Universiti Islam Antarabangsa. Next, Mr. Ahmad Faiz bin Yahaya, who is the Manager of Capacity Management and Network Planning at Speedcast Malaysia Kuala Lumpur. Mr. Zamir Hamdi bin Hamdan, who is a Senior Assistant Vice President in Industrial Relations, Freelance Management and Special Projects, so Human Capital at Astro Malaysia. Mr. Muhammad Amshah bin Aziz, who is the Corporate Affairs and Communications Manager at JT International Berhad. Ms. Fifta Handiani binti Asnam, who is the head of the English unit at the MRSM Kuantan, Ms. Arina Binti Mazlan, who is the head of the English unit at MRSM Kota Putra. Lastly, I would like to introduce our last adjudicator, Ms. Farah Adiba Binti Roslan, who is the head of English unit at MRSM Eti Ambara. Then, if it is all clear, I would like to explain the rules and regulations for this debate competition. In this debate, for the substantive speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell once at the first minute to show that point of information can be delivered. The timekeeper ring the bell once at the 6th minute to signal that no more POI will be accepted. The timekeeper will ring the bell twice at the 7th minute. For the reply speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell once at the 1st minute, and the timekeeper ring the bell twice at 4th. Now we come into our debate today to set up the case for the government team. Let's welcome the Prime Minister, Mr. Muhammad Danish Naufal.
Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone, the dear adjudicators, the speaker of the hall, timekeeper, judges, and everyone in this hall right now. So without further ado, let us, the government, would like to tell you about a motion that we'd like to talk about today, which is that this house would ban political parties from campaigning on social media during the election. So first and foremost, let us, the government, define first on what we want to propose for this motion today. The first definition is that we define banning as by limiting the access of political parties to promote themselves on social media. The second definition is that we define campaigning as actively promoting themselves to get votes and support by their supporters. The third definition is that we define social media as inactive apps like YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And this next definition is that we define election is the time for these political figures or these political parties to campaign, promote themselves in their country until the day of the election. And lastly, we define the political parties as the major political parties such as Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, Perikatan Nasional, and compared to the smaller political parties. So we move on to our status quo so far, dear judges. If you look at the status quo so far, we can see there is a lot of major political parties who has a huge following. And in this definition, as we can see that these political parties that I've stated, which is PN, BN, and so on and so forth, are being overlooked. And these smaller political parties who wants to have a chance to lead the government and wants to control the politics are not being given enough fairness in this political scene. So we would like to clarify to you, dear judges, that that this status quo right now is very unfair to these smaller political parties. We, the government, believe that everyone should have the same equality and the same amount of, we should have the same amount of equality and fairness for everyone who wants to lead in the political figures and even in the election. But it is unfair for these smaller political parties and these bigger political parties who has more advantages to promote themselves. These bigger political parties have more advantages compared to these smaller political parties who may have not as much funding as the bigger political parties. If you do not understand by that, I'll explain that in my mechanism. So I would like to explain to you what is our objective by the government. The reason why we propose this motion today is that we want to ensure fairness during the election. We want to make sure that all these political parties and these political figures would have the same amount of fairness during the election, with no one having the upper hand or having high advantages compared to the other political team. Next on, we would like to explain to you what is our mechanism and how we will want to propose it. So the first and foremost that we would do is that the government would propose this motion or this new law to the country without implementing it yet. So we would enforce this new law and we would cover the news. We would cover the news. We will tell on social media about this new implementation and this new motion that will be implemented throughout the country. And we would like to clarify to you, dear judges, that in our mechanism, this is a temporary solution to make sure that we can see the fairness between the major political figures and the smaller political figures. Go on.
Okay, testing. Okay. Do you even know what you're defining? Limiting means that you'll restrict access but still allow it to some extent. The definition is banning, which means a total of none at all. What even is your definition?
We the government have to write. Okay. So we the government have our way to define ourselves. We can define ban however we want. We can limit. By limited, we are not completely saying that they have to ban, because we are sure that the government has the right to promote themselves on social media. Okay, so that is why we want to propose this motion for today. So sorry for getting distracted. I would like to propose with our mechanism. So the next step of this government would propose our motion is that we would wait and give time for the country of a total of 5 years. So with this 5 years time frame, it will allow the political parties, these political figures, and the entire nation of Malaysia to be aware of this new motion that will be implemented, so that it will be fair for everyone to know. If there are political parties who do not know about this motion, it will not be unfair. So that is why in our mechanism, we are giving 5 years at max. And next, we would like to, after the 5 years, this motion will be implemented in a smaller scale, which is the states, which is the PRN. And afterwards, after the election, we, the government, would like to do a survey on it. A survey can be done for the nation to see the effectiveness of this motion. If the effectiveness of the motion is beneficial and positive, we would continue this motion. But if it is bad, then we would discontinue this motion. Because right now, this is a temporary solution between the fairness of these major political parties, between the smaller political parties. And throughout this mechanism as well, in order for us to identify between the huge political parties and the smaller political parties by funding. Let me give you an example. So most of these huge political parties has more funding compared to the smaller political parties. So if we can see, with huge funding, these bigger political parties can put up banners, can pay money for advertisement, which allows them to have the upper hand, to promote themselves even more compared to these smaller political parties who do not have as much money or fund. They are not able to spend themselves and to promote themselves clearly. So that is how we would define, that is how we would identify these parties. And moving on to one of our first arguments by the government is that we want to reduce extremism on social media. Since we are talking about social media, it is natural for us human beings to be angry and defend our rights and our opinions, because whenever we want to support a political party. So it is natural that a huge following of a political party consists of many people who support them, and naturally there are people who are extremely obsessed over these political parties. So with that being said, these extremists would defend their own political party. At one point they would discriminate and hate other people for it, and we, the government side, we do not encourage that. We do not want our nation to hate themselves. We do not want our nation to be divided. We want our nation to be united. Am I right? So with that being said, we should make sure, that is why we want to reduce the extremism. It is clear, and we do realize that hating, the feeling of hate and wanting to protect our rights is normal. That is human feelings. We do not deny that. So that is why we are not saying stop extremism, but we are saying that we are including a step of reducing extremism on social media, dear judges. So that is why it is one of our points on reduce extremism. And not only that, we want to make sure that the environment in social media and in the real life situation are calm and peaceful, because we want our country to be peaceful. Am I right, dear judges? So with that being said, in order for the equalness and the fairness of this election should be held, we should make sure that this House would ban political parties from campaigning on social media during the election. Thank you very much, dear judges.
The first speaker of affirmative team spent 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Then, to start the case from the opposition, here is the leader of opposition, Ms. Awatif.
The government side is not pulling the root of the cause. They are just plucking the leaves that are insignificant. Good morning, everyone. Today's motion is this House would ban political parties from campaigning on social media during election. Now, let's move on to my rebuttals first and foremost. They mentioned about how they want the same amount of equality and fairness for all the political parties. But we tell you, social media is a free app. It's free apps. Anyone can post and get many likes on social media. The influencers you see now, they do not start being rich. Most of the influencers do not start with being rich. That being said, everyone have an equal chance to get their post popular. So I don't see how the difference between big parties and political parties and funding actually is relevant to this debate at all. Now, they also mentioned something about banning, and we pointed out how banning is, how their definition is just limiting, and it's not banning. But because we are the opposition, of course, we will follow our dear government. Now, they say limit, but where is their line? How are they going to limit? I did not catch that in their mechanism. They mentioned about what they're going to do before limiting, what they're going to do after limiting, but they were not clear on what is limiting in the first place. How are they going to limit? Are they going to limit the amount of videos? Are they going to limit the amount of followers? We didn't catch that in their mechanism, did we? Now, they also mentioned about extremists, which is a funny point in my opinion, because why social media, ladies and gentlemen, when extremists exist even before independence, a time where we do not even rely much on social media? So why are the government side focusing solely on social media when extremists exist even outside of social media? Now, let's move on to our case setup. Let's look at the current status quo. In the previous election, political parties choose social media to campaign, for example, Twitter and TikTok. Through what kind? First, infographics, and second, through informative videos. Now, what does this bring to the table? This is beneficial, especially in aiding the younger demographic from 18 to 20 years old who is having their first time voting. This helps in telling them the information about these political parties so they do not get confused, so they know who to support. And our stance for today is this House would not ban political parties from campaigning on social media during election, as political parties want to evolve with time alongside their voters. Now, in today's debate, our side will focus on why social media, which they failed to focus on in their Prime Minister's speech. Second, the short-term effect of banning on netizens. Third, the long-term effect of banning campaigning in social media to the society. What we're going to prove in today's debate is why campaigning on social media's good outweighs the bad. Now, let's see why why this motion is focusing on social media. Well, in social media, they might say that in social media, people are going to spread misinformation. There might be political propaganda. But on our side, we tell you that political propaganda and misinformation exists everywhere, especially political propaganda is everywhere during campaign. So, if on that logic, based on that logic, if we want to ban campaigning on social media because of political propaganda, then why shouldn't we just ban campaigning in the first place? Because propaganda is already there in the essence of campaigning. Why? Because during campaigning, through campaigning, we give politicians a chance to speak out about their political agenda. In a way, it is a political propaganda. Why? Because in a way, through campaigning, these politicians are subtly dictating other people's views, dictating their voters' views. So, political propaganda exists either way, with social media or without social media. So why should we only focusing on banning on social media? Instead of banning, we should just limit what they post. We should ensure strict guidelines.
UI?
Yes.
So you have said that they should limit the access of social media, but in my definition, I've already stated that we are limiting the access of social media for this politician. So you should listen and understand.
Don't waste my time. We are not limiting the access of social media. We still give full access. What we are giving opinion on about in this motion is we ensure strict guidelines so that extremists that they mentioned won't exist in our side in social media. All right? Is that clear? Now, how is banning campaigning on social media good if we prevent informative culture? Could it be that the government side is afraid of the political parties persuading the citizens with their opinions? Could it be that, ladies and gentlemen? Now, let's move on to my first argument of the day, which is we have to adapt to the era of social media. Now, what do I mean by era of social media? Let's compare the current status quo now and back then. Back then, We have limited technology. We got our info where? From television, from articles, from newspaper, from posters. For example, the New Straits Times, TV3, Astro AWANI. Now, let's compare with the current status quo now. We have advanced technology. We have social media, which dominates our current world now. Everyone, people, everyone use social media. Regular people use social media. Now, even major corporations use social media. What is my proof? You see how Petronas even advertises their scholarship through social media. And you even see how Astro AWANI themselves are adapting with social media by promoting their content in YouTube and also in Twitter. Now, another example on adaptation is, okay, why do we adapt in the first place? Because it is a universal law that in order for you to survive, you have to adapt. That is called the survival of the fittest. So, in order for these companies to survive, they have to adapt to the current world of social media so we didn't get left behind. Now, I want to mention, an example I'd like to mention is New Straits Times, how it was a major source of news from back then, and they adapted. Even New Straits Times adapted. So why can't we as a country also adapt with this world of social media? Why can't we also adapt? Why can't these political parties also adapt? What the government side is doing is they are blaming the tool, not the doer. They're criminalizing the gun instead of the shooter. So what our side focus on today's debate is we are evolving with the current world. We are evolving in the current world, while they are stuck in the sweet, primitive time that they so love and advocate for. That is all from me. Thank you.
The Leader of Opposition spent 7 minutes and 47 seconds. To continue our debate today, I would like to call the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Alif Naufal.
Test. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To everybody on the floor today, adjudicators and fellow audience members. So, dear adjudicators, this is what the government completely misunderstood about our argument today. Their argument state that we need to adapt to the current climate of social media. We must adapt to it. We are adapting to it, dear adjudicators. We want these smaller parties to adapt to social media so they can promote their own agenda. We are not saying that we don't want them to adapt social media. We want these smaller parties to adapt social media in the first place. That is our point. So the argument sent by the opposition is completely absurd and is irrelevant to the case. Now I would like to defend my Prime Minister's point. The Leader of Opposition has asked us that in social media, everyone has an equal chance to be famous. The problem is, the current status quo currently is that these major parties, they have the funding, so they can be more famous in social media. Why do I say that? Because of, for example, advertisement. The adjudicators, advertisement costs money. Now, yes?
Even outside of social media, smaller parties also do not have the equal chance. So why are we focusing solely on social media? You did not you failed to clarify that.
Because currently, smaller parties, they are having a hard time to compete with major parties because they don't have the funding to even campaign outside of social media. So they require social media to campaign in the first place. But the problem is, they have to compete in social media with other bigger companies. That is the current status quo right now. So the Leader of Opposition also misunderstood our definition. They say they give us an alternative instead of banning it. Why don't we just limit it? But that is what our Prime Minister has stated. Our Prime Minister's definition is clearly to limit the use of these parties in social media. That is what our Prime Minister has stated. So the opposition's argument is currently nonsense, and they are currently agreeing to our Prime Minister's point. So that's all for my arguments. Now it's for my points. For my first point is that it will give way to the small political parties. What is the current status quo right now? The smaller political parties, they are having a hard time to campaign during elections. Why do we say that? Why do we say that smaller political parties, they are having a hard time to compete with these major parties? Because these smaller political parties, they don't have the funding. They don't have the ability to put many banners. They don't have the ability to do, to do many speeches. This is in contrast to major political parties who does have the funding, who does have the ability to do all these campaigns outside of social media. So we as the government, we would like to attend to the needs to all the stakeholders, which are the political parties themselves, the voters, and the country. How do we attend to all stakeholders in my point? So for the political parties themselves, it will give a way to the smaller political parties to do campaigns to make sure the influence are being heard. Because currently these smaller political parties, their agendas, their message, they are not being heard by the public audience. And it also cater to the needs of the voters. Because currently the voters, they are being blinded, they are being influenced. Because currently, like the opposition has stated, this young audience, these young people, they look at social media to find a party that who they can support. But currently, social media is being dominated by these major parties. These social media that are being dominated with these parties and influencing the minds without allowing these smaller parties to also give out their agendas to the younger audience, to also give out their message to the younger audience. Because currently, they have to compete with these major political parties. Because the government, we want to create a fair environment to all political parties. So it will also attend to the needs to the country itself, because this country is a democracy. We want representative from all parts. So by having the parliament dominated by these political parties, because the smaller political parties, they don't have a chance. They aren't given the representation that they deserve in parliament, because these bigger political parties, because they have already have a domination. They have already all the smaller parties competition, and they're currently being complacent. They are currently being complacent because they know that these smaller political parties, they will still win over them, because these smaller political parties doesn't have the chance in the first place. So that's for my first point. Now for my second point is that it will ensure a better outcome for the country. How? In parliament, there will be more representation in parliament. Because currently parliament, like I stated, is being controlled by these major political parties, because these smaller political parties, they don't have the chance to express their voices. They don't have the chance to send out their message and get people to vote for them. Because why? They don't have the funding. So by allowing all these political parties to have the ability to send a message to get voters, in parliament we will have more diverse perspective, because now there are more representation from not only bigger political parties but also small political parties, and this will attend to all the needs of the stakeholders, which are the political parties themselves, because now they can make better decisions, make better outcomes in parliament. Also the voters, because now the voters, they have a chance to vote for these smaller political parties, which in the end will benefit them, will benefit the country, which is another stakeholder. Why do I say it will benefit the country? Because there are more diverse perspectives at this point. There are more political parties giving out their opinions. There are more political parties giving out their viewpoints, which in the end will cause the outcome of policy creation to be better. It will make better policy outcomes. So in conclusion, in the government's case today, it's clearly very logical. We have explained how it is rational, how it is attending to all political stakeholders' needs. So, dear adjudicators, we think that our motion for the day, the motion that we are proposing, is rational, because one, it attends to all political party, to all stakeholders, and also the opposition hasn't really stated any major downsides to our arguments today, and they also are agreeing with our Prime Minister's point on how, we should be limiting them. They are agreeing, the adjudicators. So it's clear that this opposition, they don't have a clear alternative, so they just know how to complain. They only know how to say bad things about our motion, even though they themselves, they don't have the alternative. They don't have the correct things that will make this country forward. So we believe the government have given a motion that will bring this country to a more forward viewpoint. It will make this country better, because like I said, currently the opposition isn't giving any alternatives. So dear adjudicators, you should accept our points, and that's all for me. Thank you.
The Deputy Prime Minister spent 7 minutes and 6 seconds. Then, to continue our debate today, I would like to call the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Ms. Nilia Khairin.
Test. Okay. A culture that fails to adapt will see its flames whisked out, its legs unable to stand, and it will disintegrate. And this is the world that the government side is wanting to provide to us, to the citizens of Malaysia. Okay, Assalamualaikum, and without wasting further time, let me get right into my defending, my rebuttals, and my points. First things first, let me clarify that the government was busy yapping about how we don't even have an alternative. You want an alternative? Fine, I'll give you an alternative. Instead of banning or limiting, you could set a strict guideline for the political parties to follow. That's way easier and way less time consuming. Okay, but that is just a suggestion, since you were busy begging for one, right? Okay, so now let me start by rebutting the Prime Minister. I would just like to point out that the Prime Minister misunderstood the definition, because banning means that you are not allowing total access, but they said limiting, and limiting is very different from banning. And their mechanism was unclear. How would you intend to ban political parties from campaigning on social media? Social media is large. How can you effectively make sure that your mechanism works? Banning is just not effective. It's not ethical. It takes too much effort. And something that the government side kept talking and LARPing on about is about how it's unfair to smaller parties, but never really explain why. Okay, now let me tell you about why it is actually fair and better for smaller parties. Okay, why? Social media is way less costly. So it's perfect for these smaller parties that don't have enough funds to spread what they want, to spread their message, to say why we should lead, why you should choose us. Whew. Okay, now let me continue. Another thing that the Deputy Prime Minister talked about is how, we, the government, we are not letting them not adapt to social media, but that is what you're doing. You're not letting them adapt to social media. How are you making them adapt to social media when you're banning them from campaigning on social media? What are you even talking about? And then, they also mentioned about how smaller parties have problems, right? That's why they can't adapt, because they don't have enough funds. But the thing is, even without social media, smaller political parties will still struggle to compete in the first place. Why? Because here, they never really addressed the reason why many of these political parties that are small have less voters. Most of the time, it's because these political parties are new. Of course, they're going to have less attention. Of course, they're going to have less voters because they are new and they have to compete with these other major political parties that have been there way longer before them. It is not social media. It is just how politics works. Okay. All right. So enough with my rebuttals. Let me jump right into my points. But before that, let me just say something that the government said that they are going to diversify opinions, but by robbing them of not allowing to speak on social media, you are not diversifying them, government. You are just robbing them of the human right to speak anywhere. All right, now let me go into my points of the day. My first point of the day is that campaigning on social media benefits netizens. Why do I say this? Okay, firstly, we all know that social media is accessible, right? My LO explained this. Okay, so on social media, I'm going to be very fair, all right? So on social media, yes, we know there are bad people and there are good people. And while we acknowledge that bad information can be spread, we have good information to cancel it out. And in our case, the good outweighs the bad. Okay, why does the good outweighs the bad in our world? Because although false information could be spread, negative propaganda could be spread, we have good people who are brave to speak out against this misinformation. Now, before you ask me, wait, why do you say that? Okay, let me explain why. They are on social media, right? The good thing about social media is it provides anonymity. And with anonymity, with you being anonymous, you have an extra layer of protection. Why? Because because it's harder for people to find you and to sue you because you're anonymous on social media. So this can give you the chance to give higher stakes evidence, like photos, like videos, like receipts, so you can go against what a political party has said. So you can spread your message that, we shouldn't vote for this political party. And the best part is, this means that we are allowing a world where citizens who use their phones, and when they become netizens, they can express their opinions freely without judgment or peer pressure. Judgment from who? Peer pressure from who? The people that they love who might have conflicting views with them. All right? And the best part about this is, on social media, political parties can also be critiqued by anyone on a platform where everyone can see, which is social media. And the long-term lasting effect of this point, of political parties campaigning on social media, is that we are creating a safe platform where views, where opinions can be expressed by anyone without peer pressure, without being afraid of, what if my family is disappointed in me? Simply because I have a different opinion. Okay, now let me get into my second point of the day. Not only that, we are providing an active room for healthy discussion, which is good because we want a society that values these rights. So it leads me to my second point of the day. My second point of the day is that if we allow political parties to campaign on social media, we are going to have a much more informative culture. Okay, what do I mean by informative culture? First, we need to acknowledge that social media has platforms, and social media is a platform, the only platform that allows continuous discussion everywhere, no matter the time. Okay, what do I mean by continuous discussion? Okay, let me give you an example. When you speak about certain issues outside of social media, you will have to stop at one point, right? Yeah, because you have limitations, you have a schedule, you have busy. And when you want to continue talking about it in real life, it's going to get a bit awkward. And okay, being awkward is one thing, but you are more prone to inconsistencies. Why? Because there is nothing that is keeping track of what you've been discussed. There is no data for you to go back and check and see, oh no, this is wrong. Right? Okay, so that is the difference. That is starting a discussion. But now let me compare with continuing discussion. What do I mean by continuing discussion on social media? On social media, you can continue discussions from years ago. In fact, let me give you a very solid example. We have Reddit, we have Twitter, we have forums, and we have Facebooks. And on these apps, you can talk in comments, right? You can talk in comments, you have quote retweets, you have chats, and we have the search function that allows you to search for whatever you want to check for. All you have to do is type a certain letter or a word of what you're trying to check. If you want to check, oh, did the political party really say this? Did the person I was arguing with about the rights of this party really talked about this? So this is how it's good, because you can point out the inconsistencies, not only by the political parties, but also by the people, by other voters, so you can form your own opinion. Okay. Wow. All right. So what does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. So even without the search button, you can recheck for inconsistencies like contradicting statements. Why? Because like I said, it is on social media. It is being kept track of. It is data, right? So through all of these chats, quote retweets, and threads, all you have to do is scroll back to get clarification, so you know what you were talking about. So what is the long-lasting effect of our point, ladies and gentlemen? The long-lasting effect of having an informative culture, something that the government side failed to even provide, is that with our point, with informative culture, we have a world, we have society that values consistency and meaningful discussions. And when we have meaningful discussions, when we can see the obvious flaws that are present, what does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? This means that people are going to be better informed. And these same people that are becoming better informed are the same pioneers of our country that are going to vote, that are going to go to the voting election, and they are going to choose which party should I pick to represent my country, to give the best life for my children, and to make sure that I can thrive in my own motherland that I love so dear much. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
The Deputy Leader of Opposition spent 7 minutes and 57 seconds for their speech. Ladies and gentlemen and the honorable adjudicators, let's welcome the First Minister from the government team, Ms. Amira Hanisa.
Testing. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning towards the honorable adjudicators, opposition side, and also all of the audience that are here today. So, without further ado, I, as the whip of the government side, would like to address some issues and inquiries that were pointed by the opposition side towards our side to prove to you, dear judges, why our case is better and more relevant and more understandable rather than these oppositions are keeping raising doubts that are making nonsense in the adjudicator's mind and also complicating things. So for the first issue, they challenged our definition on banning, because they are saying that banning is totally abolishing and restricting that thing rather than just limiting it. But on today, on our side, we are the government. This is our case. So if you are not engaging with our case, if you are challenging with our definition, then it means that you are the one who are not engaging with our case. You are the one who are not able to cater to our case. It proves that they are not fully understanding what we are trying to propose today, and therefore you should be on our side, the adjudicators. Second of all, they are saying that everybody have the chance, everybody have the equal chance. It's either it's both of the big parties and also the small parties, they have equal chance to compete on social media and to spread their campaigns on social media. But now, I would like to go back to the basic of an analogy. So, let's give an easy example. So I posted an Instagram post and then I get 10 likes. While a celebrity, she posts a picture that is just similar to me, a selfie in front on a mirror, but then she get thousands of likes. Why? It may be because she has the fame, and it is the same case as these political parties. They have more fame, they have more recognition by the people, so therefore their content and their campaigns are more noticeable by the people. While my content, on the other hand, which only has 10 likes by my followers, is because I'm not famous enough. People don't know me. So what would they like my picture? What would they like a picture of somebody that they don't even know? So this analogy relates to the motion that we are trying to propose today, which clarifies why we put the line between big political parties, major political parties, and also smaller political parties. The third issue that was brought by the opposition side was that they want to have an informative culture. They want that all people to reach better information, because under their paradigm, people can reach better information through social media because they can dig through the past histories.
I would like to ask about your first statement. Since when are we challenging your definition? I mentioned that, okay, fine, we agree. We just pointed it out. Please clarify.
Technically, yes, you just pointed out. We are saying that they are not challenging our definition, but they tried to change our key phrase, which was banning means equals to limiting. But on their side, they clearly said that they want it to be banned completely. So now, see, who is not realizing of what they are saying? It's the opposition, not us. So clearly we are on the better side of mind. We are better and right and realizing what we are saying. So therefore, please be on our side, judges. Because these people, they don't even know what they are saying. And now they are accusing that we are wrong, while they are the ones who are not, who don't even remember what they say. So before I was rudely interrupted, I am proceeding with the third issue, which is the information reaching issue. Then how is it not informative? How is it not informative for these big major political parties, which has been explained by my Prime Minister as the parties that have more funding? And if they have more funding, then they will have more abilities to do physical campaigns, such as speeches, such as going to events and conference, and also putting up their banners throughout the places, throughout the streets, putting up their flags. So how is it not informative? Because they are aside from social media, we can also dig these stories based on their campaigns, in their conferences, in their posters, in their banners. We can also know about these. We can also know about these major parties. But now the issue that people are not knowing about these smaller parties, because even if they try to do those campaigns, it will not work out for them, because since, like I say, back to the basic analogy, they don't have the fame. The fame, and also the fame comes by the funding that they have. That is what our government is trying to propose today. So now, enough with the rebuttals. I would like to go back to restating my points, and also showing you, the judges, of the clashes of our points, and proving that why our side's points would answer the clashes better and would make better sense rather than the opposition's paradigm. So the first clash that happened is that, is it practical to use social media in campaign of politics? Because they are saying that if we are not using social media, then we are not adapting. But now that is completely out of our context, because today we are talking about the negative effects and also the positive effects, the pros and also the cons of using social media to do these campaigns. Not about we are not adapting to social media. It's not about it. On our government side, we are trying to reduce extremists on social media. So as we know, extremists means that the people who are supporting the party, the people who are going with these big parties, especially with these major parties. So extremists means that they are very extreme. They are very obsessed with their party to the extent that they could do anything. They could do to make sure that people will support and also will go with their ideology of supporting their party. And if their parties were to be more on to do more physical campaigns, then it will make them be less aggressive on the physical side. Because if you were to do physical campaigns, all of these supporters, they are not that courageous and brave to do physical protests, to do demos on streets. And if these campaigns were to be more on social media, then the influence on social media will be more. So then also these extremists will be more on social media. Because why? Since the campaign is more on social media, then these supporters can see, okay, so then they can post, look at this video, and they spread that video, and then they can also add that by themselves their hate speeches. And why they are more courageous of doing that? Because in social media, the most extreme extent, you may be caught by police, but that will be less likely, because it will be like you may be banned and everything. But if you were to do it in the real life, then you will be caught by the police. So it will make the consequences, in other words, the consequences of doing it on social media is less than doing it in the physical scene. So for the second point, that we want to give way to the smaller political parties. As we know, we want to give a fair ground of competition, as it is known that about the as our side explains about the fames and everything. So for the third one, we want to have a better parliament, because as we have diversity of opinions, and as we know how our politics, our country now, so that if we have many people from many other political parties, that we may have more decent politicians that can lead our country, and they can make a good combination in the parliamentary. So therefore, we want to propose our motion today, because we want to fight for the fairness for both of these types of political parties. So with all of the things I've said, I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
The First Minister spent 8 minutes and 2 seconds. Well, ladies and gentlemen and the honorable adjudicators, this is the first opposition team, Mr. Muhammad Hari Hakim.
The government has speak a lot, and our side also speak a lot. But which side should the adjudicator, the judge, should side with? We believe that the judge should side with our side, because the government has not really stated a clear fact, a clear argument on why the motion should be in place. Now, let us go to their argument first. The first Prime Minister said in their setup that it is unfair for these smaller parties because they cannot use their social media unlike the big parties. But are they living in a cave? Is there no internet there? How are they don't have access to social media in this day full of technology, in a day full of internet? They can't access social media, and how can we blame social media for that? How can we blame big parties to have a strategy to campaign using social media? Because they know that social media is a platform, a great platform to spread their message, to spread their manifesto, to spread their promise. And how is it fair? Because you are not allowing other parties to use social media, because other parties can't use them. That includes smaller parties who may have the resources to use this social media. So you are just contradicting yourself, because you stand with fairness towards these smaller parties. And you said yourself that this is just a temporary solution. So why are we wasting time on this temporary solution? If we want a real solution, use those effort, use those time, use those energy to find a real solution to the problem. And you said that these bigger parties have this model, has this more monies, and they use it to promote themselves in the social media. This just shows that the politicians are using their resources for the people. They're using their resources for the right thing, and they're using these resources to attract more voters, to attract more attention toward their side, to show why their side should win in the election. Now, let us get to the second speaker of the government, how he said that they want to allow smaller parties to be on social media, which I'm very confused. Then if you want to allow these smaller parties to be on social media, why are we banning them? If we ban political parties in social media, we're banning every single party, big or small. And banning is such a drastic move. There's no reasoning behind this drastic move. The government didn't clearly stated why they want to use this drastic move. They didn't clearly stated the benefit of this state of banning this political party on the social media. No. And they said that, they keep repeating this point, how the small parties don't have the resources. I want to ask you, do you guys pay for Twitter? Do you guys pay for Instagram? To create an Instagram or to create a Twitter account, to create a TikTok account is completely free, right? Nobody is paying $100 to use Twitters, to use TikTok. So the smaller parties could use those free sites to actually promote or campaign their manifestos, their promise. And let me tell you something about algorithm. How they said that, oh, the influence of the big party in the social media. Remember, algorithm exists. Algorithm is not based on influence of these big parties. Algorithm is based on the search history or what the voters search in internet. If what the people search or what the people want align with the small parties, their videos, their posts will show up in their For You page, will show up in their social media. So that is the proof of why social media should be used for political party to campaign. Next, let us get into our Let us get into our argument. Our first argument is about. Sorry, where's my papers? Okay, sorry. All right. So our first argument is about propaganda, and we said that we touched a lot about propaganda, and for your information, political propaganda could be spread with or without the use of social media. They could be spread in assembly, as a newspaper or TV station. Every single in this current day, there are many ways to spread propaganda. So without or with the social media, propaganda can still be can still be spread. And we talk a lot about the era of social media, how these decades are the decades of technology, the decade of IT and social media. Everyone is on social media. Isn't it a logical move to social media, to use it? Isn't it a logical move that this political party should use? And we also talk about adaptation. And why adaptation is important in this case? Because it shows an effort. It shows an effort by this big political party to get closer to the people. It shows that they care for the people. And it is also showing that they want to move with the time. They want to catch up with the current world. And our second speaker spoke about how netizens play in this role. How there are cons in social media. There are disadvantages. But we cannot completely disregard the valuable advantages that are given by social media. We might go knowing that the cost of the risk of mining it, but we still mine it. Why? Because we know that the benefits in the end are too valuable to lose. And we already explained how social media, how there are so many advantages in our argument, how the discussions could still be continued, even after a year long, even after a 10-year long. We could still pick up on those discussions and continue on it, and we already given an example of that by Reddit. And this could also be explained in our third point, which is about informative culture, how people know which one is right and which one is wrong. If people are fed false information, the culture right now can still be given a warning about those false news. It's like, hey, this is a false news. We shouldn't trust this news, and those news spread as fast as those fake news. So that's why social media should be used in campaigning. And this is why we, as the opposition, completely oppose the motion. Thank you very much.
The first opposition spent 7 minutes and 22 seconds for their speech. For the reply speech session, let's welcome from the opposition team, Ms. Nilia Karin.
Test, test. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this debate, let me, as the opposition side, wrap up the arguments here so you can understand why we, MRSM KKB, deserves to win. Assalamualaikum, and let me get to work by comparing our points. First things first, the government talked about how it is unfair for smaller political parties, how the government wants there to be the same amount of equality and fairness for these political parties, but I would just like to point out that they never really explained how they're going to achieve that equality and fairness for these political parties in the first place. In their world, they say that they are limiting. They say that they are only limiting, right? And they are going to give the smaller parties and the chance to campaign on social media. They completely misunderstood the essence of our debate today, which is about campaigning on social media versus not campaigning on social media. By them even giving access to some of these parties, they are actually siding with us, that they agree that social media is important to a degree, big or small. And because it's important, that means it should be open for everyone, because politics are important. Okay, so now let's compare their arguments with ours. Our argument was about how we should allow them to campaign on social media because the government is trying to adapt to the era of social media because they want to adapt alongside their voters. Okay, why did I say this? I explained that in our world, our society is constantly changing. We, the opposition side, clarified how too. Because back then, it was the era of articles, newspapers, and because technology was limited. Nowadays, we talked about how technology has advanced because the world is developing and people rely on social media because gadgets are a necessity nowadays. Why? Because everything is on it. We were extremely elaborate with our points and we explained why. We went into key detail, which is something that the government side failed to even do. And we talked about how that it is unfair to ban political parties from campaigning. Why? Because they simply want to adapt with their voters. They want to stay relevant. So the worst case scenario that could happen in our world if we do not ban politicians from campaigning is that yes, political parties can campaign on social media, but it will spread a positive image that politicians are willing to change for their people, for their voters. That they are willing to keep track with the times, that they are willing to continue advancing with how the country is advancing, so they can go hand in hand with their citizens and the political parties. Okay, so now let me continue on with my reply speech. Another thing is that they mentioned about how smaller parties can diversify emotions and so on. They explained about how it works and they talked about how smaller parties can diversify emotions and so on. But they never really explained what's the good of that diversification of emotions. And we rebutted by saying, how is it diversity if you are banning the other political parties from speaking? That's not really fair, is it now? So let's compare it with our points of the day. Our point being about how we are fighting for an informative culture. Why? We explained how it works. We talked about how on social media, there are continuous discussions. We even explained because social media keeps data. Why? So you can check for these inconsistencies that might happen with these political parties. We talked about how there is the search button for you to go back to whatever time you want to go back to check, or you can just scroll back to your chats. So the worst case scenario in our world is that perhaps it is a bit of a hassle for you to scroll through and find, but it is good because you have a culture that values consistency, a culture that values truth, a culture that makes sure to look out for the political parties that are not being true to themselves, that are contradicting their statements. Why? Because we want a country full of people who want to be informed, people who want to make sure that they are fed the right information so they can make the proper decision for our country. Opposition side on the other hand, government side on the other hand, what are they even fighting for? What are the long-lasting effects? What is it? That's all from me. And this is why MRSM KKB deserves to win, because we rock. Thank you.
The speaker of the opposition team spent 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Finally, here is the reply speech from the government team, Mr. Muhammad Danish Naufal.
Testing. So one of the issues that has been stated by the government that I would like to state by the opposition, sorry, is that we want to state that the first thing that they have said is that social media gives an equal chance to gain popularity. What we, the government, are clarifying, dear judges, is that there is advantages and disadvantages. We are saying that these major political parties have a way more huge following compared to these smaller political parties. And we have stated that our objective by proposing this motion is that we want to ensure fairness in this environmental in this political playground. So if there is a major group that has a huge advantage compared to this smaller group who has disadvantages, that is not fair. So that is why we are proposing this motion in the first place. And yes, social media is indeed free, but the thing that the advantages that these major political parties have is that they have money. They can buy banners, they can buy posters, they can buy advertisements, they can promote themselves on television. So that is the first thing that we are trying to say. And the thing about the opposition is that they don't want to engage with our definition. We, the government, has our right. We have our right to define whatever we want by banning. And they are saying that we are not defining banning by the literal definition of the dictionary. We can define limiting however we want. So that is what the opposition are complaining all about. And the opposition has also stating that we have to adapt with social media. Since when we, the government, are not saying that these small political parties are not adapting with social media? All of these parties has already adapted to social media. But the reason why we are approaching this motion in the first place is to give a fairness, equality to these both parties. If a major political party are having money and majorly spending money on advertisements that is putting throughout all the country, then how can, so we allow these smaller political parties to give full access to social media. So there is an equal fairness between these two parties. And lastly, they say that if they oppose this motion, there will be an informative culture that would happen. Let me ask you, opposition, and let me ask you, the judges, how can you guarantee that the information on social media would be overtaken by fake news? Fake news can happen 1 second at a day. Fake news will be uploaded every single day by people who hate these political parties, people who want attention. Fake news occurrently happens every single day, dear judges. So they haven't even stated what is their guarantee that these fake news can be prevented. And now I would like to reason on why this motion should stand. One of the first arguments is that we want to reduce the extremism on social media. We want to make sure there is a comfortable and peaceful environment on social media. Because as we know, if we look at these political parties who have a huge amount of following, it is natural that there are people who are so extreme that they would offend and hurt other people, verbally or cyberbullying, basically. So with that being said, if we are limiting the access of posts on these major political parties, then the commenting and the feedback of these extremists would reduce. We understand that it is human nature that we would hate against and we would defend our opinions. But that's what we are saying. We are only reducing, not stopping. The second argument is that we want to give way, we want to give opportunity to these smaller political parties, dear judges. If we are allowing these major political parties to compete by having more advantages compared to these smaller political parties who have many disadvantages, then how can they compete? It is not fair for them. That is our objective that we are trying today, which leads to my last argument, which is that there will be a better parliamentary. Having these smaller political parties gaining the advantage to finally be equal and have a fair environment in this political playground, it would finally allow them to voice out their opinions by not being overshadowed by these major political figures who are only getting more popularity and followers just because of the amount of money they are spending on advertisement and promoting themselves and campaigning. So that is why we are preaching today. Why should we not support fairness in everything that we do? If we want to compete in something, everything should be fair. Everything should be fair. These two teams should have the same amount of training time. These two teams should be given the amount of same information. So these two political parties should have the same advantages and the same disadvantages. So that is why we believe that by proposing this motion, it would ensure fairness during the election, which would better improve the country. That is all from us, the government. Thank you very much.
The speaker spent 4 minutes and 24 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, the honorable adjudicators, that is the end of our debate today, and we will allow the honorable adjudicators to decide the winner of this debate. Debaters can cross the floor and audience may take a break while the adjudicators deliberate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker of the House. Ladies and gentlemen, we surely have enjoyed witnessing the thrilling debate session between MRSM Kuala Kubu Bharu and MRSM Muadzam Shah. Kudos to both teams.
Announcing the leaving of the guests of honor. Mohon perhatian para peserta debat untuk tidak meninggalkan dewan. ulangan suara. Mohon perhatian kepada peserta debat tidak meninggalkan dewan.